according to the introductions and our program, I was told that it's custom to do the grand entrance. And what we're going to do is right now is allow them to do their grand entrance. So we'll give them a few minutes and then we'll start our program. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elmer Pina. I am the Affirmative Action EEO Officer of the City of East Providence, and I welcome you all to our event this evening. Before I go any further, I just wanted to recognize a few people who were part of this program, helped put this together. I'd like to recognize Mr. David O'Connell in the back, being part of the program. Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. Also to Mrs. Carol Little Meadow Brown. Thank you so much for being part of our program. And last but not least, Mrs. Patricia Gentle-Wayne Booker. Thank you so much for being part of our program. Every November since 1990, the United States celebrates Native American Heritage Month. The commemoration of the month provides a platform for Native Americans to share traditions, music, crafts, and dance with others. It also serves as a powerful reminder for non-natives of the important contributions and the significance of Native people in the history and the present day reality of North America. However, the importance of honoring Native people runs much deeper than this month of celebration and commemoration. The Native American narrative has been controlled by history told through the eyes of the dominant Western culture. In order to change this narrative, you must understand there's a narrative to be changed and a heritage to be celebrated. Native American Heritage Month is one step toward an ever-present recognition and celebration of the Native Americans of North America. At this time, I'd like to introduce a gentleman. But before I do that, the Honorable Mayor, Mr. Roberto da Silva, is unfortunately sick this evening, but he sends his deepest regrets for not being here tonight. In his place is our Council President, Mr. Bobby Brito.
Thank you, Elmo. From the Mayor's office, I have a proclamation that I would like to read off this evening. But first, I want to congratulate you, Elmo, on putting this together. This is something that's well overdue. I know you had it years in the past. However, far too often that I stand here and celebrate other cultures, and it's good to see that we're celebrating Native Americans, because this is, as we all know, where it all started. That being said, the proclamation, and I want to apologize to you in advance in the fact that if I just kind of scramble some of these words around, not being able to pronounce them. However, the City of Providence, City of East Providence, Office of the Mayor, mayoral proclamation on behalf of the Mayor's office and the City Council. Whereas the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation was the largest Indian nation in colonial times. And whereas it is an ancient American civilization that has existed in southern New England for upwards of 10,000 years. And whereas generally what is known as constitute historical evidence concerning the Pokanokets and found in the academic repository of Yale, Harvard, Brown University, and such standards reference work as the Smithsonian. And whereas together numerous tribes and bands form the Pokanoket nations, which occupy the present states of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, east of the Hudson River, and as far as the Schaghticoke Falls, and in southern parts of both Vermont and New Hampshire. And whereas all these indigenous people spoke the Algonquin language and shared similar social, political, and religious practices, and whereas the leading tribe of the Pokanoket Nation, Pokanoket Confederacy, was the Pokanoket tribe, and whereas the Pokanoket tribe at one time of about 8,000 people traditionally occupied the landmass known as Cape Cod, southern Massachusetts, eastern Rhode Island, including most of the islands in Narragansett Bay. And whereas in Bristol, Rhode Island, and at the head of the Narragansett Bay, the Pokanoket, the outlook of the Pokanoket, known today as Mount Hope, which was the seat of the Massasoit great leader of all the Pokanokets, and whereas during King Philip's War, 1675 to 1676, the colonial government made it illegal for all males 14 years of age or older to call himself Pokanoket, or he could be put to death. And whereas the Pokanokets were called Wampanoag from the point in history, but Wampanoag referred as a nation, not as a tribe. Now, therefore, the mayor of the city of East Providence, on behalf of the city of East Providence, celebrates Native American Heritage Month proclaimed November 20th, 2019 as Native American Heritage Day. Thank you. So I'm going to ask Mr. Sagamore to come up and accept this proclamation on behalf of the city and the city of East Providence. City of East Providence. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Pokanoket tribe, the Pokanoket Nation, I'd like to thank you, and we're honored to be here this evening to share a little bit of our culture and our history. And East Providence is part of the land of Pokanoket. The earliest expeditions, the lands within the Pokanoket realm, was by a captain, Portuguese captain, Miguel Cordeiro. And he came in 1502. And then in 1524, Giovanni Ferrazzano sailed into Narragansett Bay and then Mount Hope Bay, and he recorded in his captain's log a latitude of 41 degrees 40 north, which put him right parallel to the seat of the Massasoit in Bristol, Mount Hope, Rhode Island. And he recorded in his log about the inhabitants on the shores there. He said that they were the goodliest people he had ever seen because they were always lifting their hands to the Creator and worshiping the Creator. And in keeping with that tradition in our culture, we, as this tribe has done, we always start off with a song to the Creator, Tabat Ibuchi, and we say a prayer to our Creator. So in order to take and start this evening, kick it off, I'd like to take and have the heartbeat of Pokanoket, which is the name of our drum, open up with Tabat Ibuchi.
What
for the trees and just for today. Great Spirit, I thank you. Great Spirit, I thank you. Hey, 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 oh. The Father, the Father, I'd like to introduce a man that is well known here in East Providence, East Providence native, Sachem Harry Hawk Acuna. And Harry is going to open up with a tobacco prayer. And Harry is from the Anawans line of the Poconoke tribe.
Thank you very much.
We say a hope. A hope. Yes, I'm Harry Hawk Edmonds of the Poconoke Tribal Nation. A lot of times people ask me, how did you get the name Hawk? Well, I played basketball for East Providence High School back in the 50s. And I made a few clutch shots in the closing minutes or seconds of the game. And one of the students, God rest his soul, Dennis Simbron, said, he's got a hawk eye. He's got a hawk eye. So they start calling me Harry Hawk Edmonds. And in the language, it's Quanunin, in the Algonquin language, which means hawk. For those of you who don't know, tobacco is very sacred to my people. We use it in many of our ceremonies to give thanks to the Great Spirit, Kichimenatu, the Creator. So what I'd like to do is offer a sacred tobacco prayer in the language of my people, the Algonquin, the Nipmuc language that we spoke back in the day. Although we spoke in many different dialects, our native people were able to understand and communicate with one another. After the King Philip's War of 1675-1676, my people were deprived from speaking the language. They had to assimilate and adapt the ways of the settlers in order to survive. So the language was taken from us. So I took it upon myself to learn this sacred tobacco prayer in my native language. And this prayer is about honor and respect, which is the native way. They respected Mother Earth, Aki. They honored just about everything. The respect is somewhat lost in today's community, as we all know. But hopefully we're getting it back. I will also offer this prayer in the English language, so you've understood what I've communicated to you. If I could have everyone stand up, remove your hats, and join hands with the person next to you. Make a connection. I will begin. This prayer is called Nepitan, I pray. Katatuit, numagni, oitamog. Aki numagni, oitamog. Okamus, Nu pashad nu magni o with the mog. Wuchi chi kiriasan. Nu powers nu magni o with the mog. Tu patni anuayan. Nu magni with the mog o nu uk na shikaki. Wampanayu, Somanayu, Patanayu, Nanamayu. Trapatnianawayan, Nowachi, Wani, Nitam Pog, Neg Pamaninicheg, Neg Pamampachig, Papinashimwag, Metakoch Ka Maskitosh, Namosag, Quitianamuk, we, Chininamacheg, Atuk, Musk, Makwashin, Tunapasag, Sasaso, Katatawit, Numagni, Awitamog. Oh. Great Spirit, I offer this tobacco. Mother Earth, I offer this tobacco. Grandmother Moon, I offer this tobacco. Grandfather's Son, I offer this tobacco. I thank you. I offer this tobacco to the four directions, to the east, to the south, to the west, to the north. I thank you for all my relations, the winged nation, the creeping, crawling nation, the four-legged nation, the green and growing nation, and all things living in the water, honoring the clans, the deer, the bear, the wolf, the turtle, the snipe, and the rabbit. Great Spirit, I offer this tobacco. Aho.
Oh.
Tabatni, katabatash, I thank you.
Before we bring up our next speaker, I'd like to recognize Senator Val Lawson. Senator, thank you so much for being here after your busy schedule. Thank you for being here tonight. Also like to recognize our new appointed Fire Chief, Glenn Quick in the back. Thank you so much, Chief, being appointed just today, and he's here tonight, so that means a lot. Thank you for being here. Also, a member of our planning department, Johanna, thank you for being here. Also, Pastor Pam Bird, thank you for being here. And also from the mayor's office, Mark Furtado, who's just coming downstairs from a long day. So thank you, Mark, for being here this evening. And a long time friend of mine, Emily Thomas, it's been a long time. Thank you for being here this evening. So at this time, I'm going to ask our guest speaker, Sachem Tracy Dancing Star Brown, to say a few words.
Hello everyone, my name is Kokuma Kwakanakis. I am Dancing Star. I am the sachem of the Pokanoket tribe, Phillips line. I am of the Wolf Clan. So, I think we had a little mix-up because we thought that the Sagamore was going to be the guest speaker, and I am going to default to him because the Sagamore is here, and that is a great honor, and he is an elder. I am the sachem. That is something that has been newly appointed to me within the year, and it was a great honor. Our people, you don't run for that position, you don't get voted into that position, you are appointed that position. The elders, the council, the clan grandmother appointed me to be the sachem. I've sat under the wings of the Sagamore. And I've learned many things from him because his wisdom is deep, and there are still things that he speaks of that I still don't know. So for as long as I have the Sagamore in my presence, I will default to him and let you glean from the knowledge and the wisdom that he has of our people. Sagamore.
At this time, if I can ask David O'Connell, who's a historian here in the city of East Providence, and he has been studying a long time on Native American culture, and he asked if he could introduce the Sagamore. So Dave.
It is my honor to introduce the Sagamore of the Pokanoket tribe. This man here, we need to understand, those who do not know him, who he is and what responsibilities he carries upon his shoulders. In the 1600s, there was a great leader, and we all know who he was. We call him Massasoit. And we've come to realize, if we study enough, that the name Massasoit, in fact, was not his personal name, it was his title. He was a great leader, a great chief sachem over many of all the other tribes in the Pokanoket tribe, in the nation. There were many sachems of each tribe and band. He was the great chief above them all, ruling and guiding and protecting them all. For 40 years, the Massasoit did a great job of keeping the peace. And I'm sure everyone alive at that time is grateful for his great leadership. Today, they no longer use the title Massasoit out of respect and deference to that great leader, whose name was Osamequin, not Massasoit. And so today it is my honor to welcome and introduce not the Massasoit, whose name has been retired, but the new name for the great leader of the Pokanokets. The Sagamore is currently the title that is used. And so William Guy, that's his English name, and I'm going to attempt his Indian name, Po Waipi Nimpog. Ever get it? The name means winds of thunder, and I'm sure he is. He is also, in addition to being the Sagamore of the Pokanoket tribe, he is also the great chief of the Federation for Aboriginal Nations of America, which goes all the way down the East Coast and into the islands in the Atlantic and Caribbean. So be aware of who this man is who comes to speak to us today, and we are honored to have him here. Welcome.
I don't know what to say. I'm speechless after that illustrious introduction. Well, what I would like to do is have the drummer do another selection before I get started. Okay. recognize their age. Oh, yes. And, yeah, I mean, if they can get out there to do this here, then anyone can do it. All right? Because my cousin Lee is my first cousin. His mother is my father's younger sister. And of course, Lee's 85 years old. I mean, we're all, and of course, Harry's 84, and I'm approaching 80, somewhere around, you know. They're older than I am. But I like again say that it's a pleasure for us to be here this evening. My name is Paul Neopog, that's Winds of Thunder in our language. And I am the 10th generation great-grandson of the Massasoit Osamequin, who welcomed the Pilgrims of this country. And I am the 9th generation great-grandson of Metacomet. You know him historically as King Philip of the King Philip Wars. And I am the 6th generation great-grandson of George Washington's hand-picked bodyguard, Simeon Simons. And Simeon Simons was the hand-picked bodyguard of George Washington, the only man that he trusted to watch over him when he slept. When George Washington was coming to Patchogue, Connecticut to take over the revolutionary forces, my great-grandfather, 6th generation, was out there pinning all his men. He called him in, he wanted to know who he was, and he went with George Washington that day. He became a Continental soldier, received a pension as a Continental soldier, which was a higher pension than the regular army. And the reason why I tell you this is because that's King Philip's great-grandson. This is a portrait of my great-grandfather with George Washington. This is in the Griswold Town Hall. All right? He is also on the bicentennial coin of the town of Griswold, Connecticut. And this coin has a seal of Griswold on one side, and on the other side it has George Washington and Simeon Simon riding together horseback side by side. So that's who my line, my heritage. I am the first male from Philip's line to be chief in this tribe since King Philip. So he killed him because of the fact that the law of you being a male 14 years of age or older and saying you were Pokanoket, they could kill you on sight. So we had a lot of women leaders and a lot of women chiefs in our tribe, but we had women chiefs at the time of the Pilgrims coming here also. One would be, Squaw Satan would be of the Bacassa tribe, and Weedamo, thank you very much. And of course, her sister, Wanatanuski, was married to King Philip. Weedamo was married to Wom Southern. So there were 2 brothers that were married to 2 sisters. And this is something that was pretty common within our nations. When the English came here, the Pokanoket Nation was the largest Indian nation in colonial America. There were over 60 tribes, bands, and clans in that nation. And the word Wampanoag wasn't heard for the first 50 years of encounters with the European. That's the name that they gave us during the King Philip War when the colonists tried to expunge Pokanoket from the dictionary. So when they talked about our lands, and a lot of what you heard, I'm going to repeat. But our lands, you know, the Massasoit was quite a diplomat, because when the Pilgrims came here, he had gone from a tribe of 3,000 warriors. There were over 8,000 people in the Pokanoket tribe, but he had lost over close to, well, he went from 3,000 warriors to under 300 warriors, and he still remained the Massasoit of these different tribes and bands and clans in his nation. So he must have been quite a diplomat in his day. One of the things he did was he formed an alliance with the Pilgrims because he needed protection from some of the warlike tribes that were here. One of them was the Narragansett. But the funny thing about that is that they were all related anyway. And they were fighting amongst each other. And if you look at the history of the Massasoit, his father was Mika. He was Kananika's brother. So when you stop and look at this here and you say, well, why were these tribes fighting? How did they become the Pokanokets? And a lot of tribes were named after the territories that they were in. And all of these chiefs that came out of these tribes, for instance, the Poconokas lived in Solons. Well, Solons in the time of the Massasoit was Rehoboth, Seekonk. East Providence was part of Seekonk at that time. Swansea, Barrington, Warren, Bristol. Today, Solons is Barrington, Warren, and Bristol, Rhode Island. At that time, Rhode Island, or Bristol County, Rhode Island, at that time it was Bristol County, Massachusetts. In 1748, Massachusetts ceded Barrington, Warren, and Bristol, Rhode Island to the state of Rhode Island. Bristol to the state of Rhode Island, so it became Bristol County, Rhode Island. So a lot of the boundary lines have changed through the years. Our territories went all the way up to New York State, to Scotticook Fall, this side of the Hudson River, and southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire. And you say, well, how did he end up being all up in that area? Well, the Massasoit was married to the Queen of the Nipmunks. And that's who King Philip's mother was, Wamsutta, Sukanuku, his sister Amy, the other sister. But if you read the history, you'll find that the Massasoit was the acknowledged head of the Quabog Nipmunk Nation. And a lot of this history is just coming out because of the World Wide Web. You know, but these are things that were drilled in my head as a kid coming up. I always knew who I was. I couldn't talk about it. I remember times when I did, I was called in the house, you know, but from the time I was a little kid, it was drilled in every one of us. And you're a princess, and, you know, my cousin Deborah back there, she'll tell you the same thing, but as a kid, I listened to what I was told, and I believed what my parents told me. And I remember one time saying to my mother, well, how do I know this is true, you know? I said, you know, my Indian heritage hasn't got me anything. You think my father would lie to me? Right? This is what I was, so I never questioned her after that, all right? But everyone in our family knew this. And everyone in the time when I was a kid, they knew who my family was. I didn't have to tell them, you know, I'm the guy, I'm a Wheaton. In fact, in the city, up here in Providence, we were known as the real Indians. And of course, Harry and they could contest to that. We went out to see Bella's mother, and she called them over. She said, call all her kids over. She says, I want you to meet the real Indians. This is what my family was called. So when I talk about my heritage, I'm proud of my heritage, and I'm not going to let anyone steal my heritage. But there are people that are trying to do that. It's called identity theft. The last chief in our tribe was a woman. And she's on that mural downtown Providence, the Indian princess that they drew on that building down there. Her name was Princess Redwing. And probably some of you older people out here probably know who she was. But she was very instrumental. And this is a picture of Princess Redwing right here. She's the only Indian, and I'm saying Indian, I'm not calling her Native American because I don't deal with that term. But she is, because when I say Indian, I'm talking about the original inhabitants here. I'm having senior moments here this evening. But this is the woman that they have downtown on that mural that says an Indian princess. It's Princess Redwing. She was our last chief. And when she died back in '88, she called her family together, and she, you know, appointed, because she was also the orator and the tribal historian, and she appointed jobs for different people in the tribe. And one of them was for the Powers of our tribe, who was her godson. This is my older brother, junior guy, Clifford guy. Some of you people know him. And she took some titles away from some of the people in the tribe because she said, you know, you disgrace the title. So basically, we had one of my cousins was King Philip, but she took that title away from him. So basically, trying to live up to what this woman has accomplished is really a hard act to follow, because she's in the who's who of a woman in the world, the Book of Honor. She's got all these accolades behind her name. And I would sit there, and when my elders wanted me to be the chief, I didn't really want to be the chief. All right, you might find that hard to believe, but I didn't have any desire to be the chief at that time. And I tell a story all the time. My wife gets upset, but there's a lot of responsibility to being the chief, and you're serving the people. And I had envisioned myself doing other things in my senior years, like traveling, so forth and so on. But I got the message. You know, it was prophesied over me by about 2 or 3 people that I didn't even know, and some people who were here to hear that prophecy. And finally, I got it from the Creator. Okay, I'll accept the position, but it isn't a position that I wanted. My elders may be the chief of the tribe. And so basically, that's a little history of how I got to be chief. Well, I was talking about our lands going all up in up to New York State, Schaghticoke Fall, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire. You go up to Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire, and that's where the King Philip Trail is. You know, any of you ever been to Mount Monadnock, the King Philip Trail? Well, why do you think they call it the King Philip Trail? Because it was our territory. And actually, during the King Philip War, Philip was up there with his cousin Connaught, the chief from the Narragansetts, during the winter campaign, planning their strategy before they came back to go back to war. And so, my auntie only, these were his relatives. The elder Canonicus was the Massasoit's uncle. And so basically, the Massasoit was the most recognized chief in this country. There was no chief that was more recognized than the Massasoit. And the title, like he said, it means great leader, because he was the great leader of the largest Indian country, the largest Indian nation in this country. And his name was Osamequin, which is yellow feather in our language. And so basically, they're all hard acts to follow. But when I talk about Princess Redwing, she's the only Indian in the 20th century or the 19th century that's been inducted into the Rhode Island Heritage Hall of Fame. All right? And we can go back to the 18th century. You're going to have to go back, I think, of our time. She got in that Rhode Island Heritage Hall of Fame before King Philip and before the Massasoit. And she comes from the same line. This is Redwing is my mother's first cousin. Her mother and my mother's father were brothers and sisters, so that's the relation. But the Hawk and Lee here, they come down on my father's side. That's Anawan's line. So in our tribe, we have, and that's the Eldigan line, and that Eldigan line out of the Seekonk tribe. When you talk about the Seekonk tribe, you're talking about the captures of the Anawan captives, which were left over from the King Philip War. And as a kid coming up, my grandmother, she would tell me, you know, my people come from Anawan. She would always, you know, drill us in our heads. You know where Anawan Rock is? And my grandmother was blind, so a lot of times she didn't talk loud when she talked about this because she didn't know who was in the room. But these were the things from the time I was a little kid. Cause I think that Harry and Lee, I think you knew Grandma when she could see. I came along after them, and my grandmother was blind, but she would say, I come from Anawan's line. And when the town of Seekonk incorporated in 1812, there were 3 Indian villages on Chestnut Street. And this is my grandmother, that's the Eldigan people. This is my grandmother's people. And she would tell me, yeah, as a kid, because she was born in 1875, and she was still here in the 1970s, so she was close to 100 when she died, and she could relay all of this information to us. And my daughter met my grandmother, she knew who my grandmother was. So it's not something that, you know, when your people pass something down to you, you remember that, and you honor that. And so I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come here and tell you a little bit about who I am. The introduction, the proclamation told you all about the tribe, which is what I said, which I usually talk about, but I'm not going to repeat things that you already heard. At this time, I would like to take and introduce the sachem of Tokadoka from Philip's line, and we have a sachem from Anawan's line, we have a sachem from Philip's line, we have a sachem from Quanaquina's line. Quanaquina was the brother of the Massasoit, And we have a sachem from Amy's line. Amy was King Philip's sister. So, you know, in the day, they were actually sagamores of those different tribes. Anawan was a sagamore. Like they told you, we laid this title of Massasoit to rest with our Creator in 1993 at the seat of the Massasoit, and we said there would never be another Massasoit in our tribe, that the God, the Creator, would be our Massasoit. And so as high as you can go in our tribe would be a sagamore, a grand sachem. And so that's why we have the different sachems of the different lines, and basically by birthright, they're sagamores because they come from a royal line. And people will say, well, there was no such thing as royalty. That's how the English identified us, because this is what they knew. They knew that these were the headships of these tribes, and that's how they identified royalty as leadership. And that's why you had these different princes and princesses. And even over there with the Niantic Narragansett, you had King Ninigrid over there. And of course, the Massasoit's mother was King Ninigrid's daughter. So the father was Narragansett, the mother was Niantic. And you said, well, how do you become Pokanoket? You know, well, how did the Asonics become Asonic? You know what I'm saying? They're named after the territory they lived in, but the Pokanokets are not named after the territory they lived in, because the Pokanokets dwelled in Soams. And so Pokanoket means the land at the clearing. And basically, that's just a little bit of history of our tribe. And at this time, I'm going to introduce our sachem, Miss Tracy, dancing star.
Okay, so he has a lot of knowledge, and I didn't want to cheat you out of that. And he took it easy on you guys, because usually he talks for hours. But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because I can talk for hours too. I am the tribal storyteller as well, so we thought we would lighten it up a bit, and I would just tell some of our tribal stories. So one of the things that I wanted to go back, one of the stories is with King Philip, how he got the name, because you had left off by talking about how we're prince and princesses, and a lot of people say, oh, there was no such thing as prince and princesses, you know, with the American Indian people. But what had happened is the Massasoit Osamiquin, he had asked for his children to get some Christian names. But the English thought that it was unfitting for our people to get English names where they were Christian names, and you know, we were not Christians. So what they did instead is they gave us names, but they gave us Greek names. So they gave Alexander Wamsutta the name Alexander for Alexander the Great, and they gave Metacom the name Philip for Philip of Macedonia. Now, one day Philip was walking, and one of the colonists said, "Hey, Philip," and he stopped and he looked and he said, "What did you just call me?" And the colonist said, "Philip." And he said, "What do you call your great leader across the seas?" And the colonist said, "We call him King." So Philip said, "From this day forward, you shall never call me Philip, for I am the great leader in these lands. When you refer to me, you refer to me as King Philip." So that is a story that, you know, was passed down to me. Thank you. I do much better this way, and I'm not going to stand behind the podium either. And another story that I wanted to tell you, because the Sagamore referred to one of our mountains, the King Philip Trail in Monadnock. And so our people we had 3 mountains. I believe out west they have a prophecy. It's the prophecy of the white buffalo. But what came down to me and our family is our prophecy is with the 3 mountains. We have 3 sacred mountains. We have Patumtuck, the lookout of Pokanoket. We have Monadnock, and we have Wachusett. So those are the mountains of the past, the present, and the future. And our prophecy was when Mount Wachusett lit up at night, that is when our people would come back together and be great again. So, if you think Mount Wachusett, it is lit at night. And if you're a skier and you want to go for night skiing, you go to Mount Wachusett because it is lit at night. And our people are once again together. We can call ourselves by our rightful name, not the name that they told us we had to call ourselves by after the King Philip War, when the tribes that fought in King Philip's war were referred to as Wampanoag. And that's when we had to call ourselves Wampanoag. And they took our name Pokanoket away, because when you take away the name of a people, then you can take other things. Let's put it that way. But, you take away their identity. But we are, together back as a people, and that is, very important. Our prophecy has come to pass. So I wanted to let you know about that. Aho. So, I'm going to just tell a couple of stories that have been passed down. There's a lot of stories that have been passed down, but this particular one was passed down by Redwing, Princess Redwing, and she was Narragansett, but she was also Pokanoket. She would always say she was from the 7 Crescents, which is the sign of the Pokanoket. So, many, many moons ago, everyone lived up in the sky, and below was just water, where all the water creatures lived. But one day, the sky chief, he came and he pulled the tree of life up from the sky and created a big hole in the sky. And he called Sky Queen, come, come, and look. And when she came and when she looked down, she fell down through the hole. And all of the water creatures, they looked up and they said, oh, look, look, a star is falling. Oh no, that's not a star, it's Sky Queen. So the swan swam and she spread out her wings and she caught the Sky Queen on her back. But the Sky Queen was so heavy and she said, oh my, I cannot hold her forever, what shall I do? So the turtle swam up from beneath and he said, I know what you can do. You can put her on my back, I can hold her, but I'm going to need a lot of the earth on my back. So all of the water creatures, they swam down and they each came up with a handful of earth and they placed it on the turtle's back. And the earth grew to the north, the south, the east, and the west. And the turtle grew right along with it. And by, the turtle was holding the entire earth on his back. Now, every so often, that turtle, he gets a little tired of holding this great big earth of Oz on his back, and he gives himself a little stretch, and the whole earth shakes. You guys, I know you people call that an earthquake. But I'm just going to let you know, don't be frightened, because all of my people know it's just the turtle just stretching, getting a little bit tired of holding up this earth of ours. Now, by and by, they got Sky Queen, and they put Sky Queen upon the earth. And she had 2 children. One was very, very good, and the other was very, very bad. Oh, you guys heard this before? And the other was very, very bad. And everything that the good son did, the bad son would do something to mess it up. The good son, for instance, would make a bright, beautiful, sunshiny day. And the bad son, he'd cause it to storm, to hail, to thunder and lightning. The good son made a beautiful meadow with berries in it for us to eat. But the bad son put the bullbriars in it, the prickers. That poor old woman, always trying to separate the good from the bad. Well, you know, she grew old, and one day she died. They got her, and they buried her in the earth. And from her body started to grow all the things that sustain us even today. Because we are her children. So I just thought y'all should know how you got here. So talking about the turtle, I do have a turtle. Talking about the turtle, we all know that the turtle holds what on its back? The earth, right? But the turtle is used for many things in my culture. One of the things that it's used for, it's our calendar. So if you count the small squares around the turtle's back, it'd be 28, because it takes 28 sun-ups or 28 days to create a moon. And then if you count the larger squares on the turtle's back, you will find that there are 13 of them, because it takes 13 moons to create a year. So this is what we would use for our calendar. Now what's important about the moon, the 13 moons, is that, as Sagamore said, our people were a very thankful people. We were always raising our hands and giving thanks to the Creator. For every moon, we had a Thanksgiving. There was something that my people were thankful for. So your people might have one Thanksgiving, but we had 13 Thanksgivings. 13 times when we would come together and we would feast and we would dance. But most of all, we would give thanks to the Creator. So our tribe, we still celebrate about 4 of them in our tribe, but there are 13 altogether. And what has now become Thanksgiving, it was actually just our harvest Thanksgiving. And it wasn't, in November, so it's not the Thanksgiving at all that's really celebrated today. It was something totally different. It was just our harvest Thanksgiving, and we were just giving thanks for, the harvest, for the fields, and, it was a beautiful time. And, in October, that's when we do our harvest Thanksgiving. But I'm going to tell a story about one of our Thanksgivings, and it does have to do with the harvest, but it's the cranberry Thanksgiving. How many of you like cranberries? So what happened is it was harvest time, and there was this one Indian who didn't get his harvest in. Perhaps he was a little slow. Perhaps he was a little lazy. I don't know. But the Creator took pity on him and had mercy and turned the winds back just a little bit. You guys call that Indian summer. But that was the Creator's mercy in giving one last chance to get that harvest in. But there was a problem. You see, the Creator had already used all of the sweetness and all the other fruits and all the other berries, and He had just a little left. But what He had left, He didn't deny us. What He had left, He put in the cranberry. So that's why it's a little tart, but still, we give thanks to the Creator for the cranberry, for the mercy He gives us. And we have our cranberry Thanksgiving. So that's one of 13 Thanksgivings, that we celebrate, in my culture. So, I wanted to give you a break from talking. And did you want to do another song, or? Yes, no? Okay, well, I can tell another story, because I can tell stories all night long. But I think I heard you beating, so I'll let you do another song. We're strawberry green bean.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, today and what our tribe is doing today. So, Sagamore?
6,000 Indians down the east coast of the United States. And we are the tribes that are not federally recognized, and we do not want to be federally recognized. So in that capacity, we are known as the Aboriginal American or Aboriginal Indians. And by taking back that designation, it puts us in another category. As a Native American, a federally recognized Indian, what this government does is they actually take away your Aboriginal rights. And they make you a Native American. And one of the things that they do is they'll take in, they'll put land in trust for you. And that is one of the first things they do, is put land in trust for you. And but as an Aboriginal, we the original inhabitants of the land, we never gave up any of our, or relinquished any of our rights to the United States government. So we do not come under the same laws as a Native American. We come under Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States. And under Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States, we do not sit before a jury of our peers. We sit before Article 3 judges. And there are only 2 Article 3 courts in the United States. One is in Washington, and the other is in Hawaii. But there's no judges in Hawaii, so they have to ship the Article 3 judges to Hawaii. So a lot of the laws that apply to you, they really don't apply to me. And this is why we're able to take and use our tribal cars as our license. We're able to put our own plates on our cars. We put it in our tribal trusts. And these are some of the things that we are doing as Aboriginal inhabitants of this country. Basically, all of the laws that were written, there were no federally recognized tribes at the time. They were just Aboriginal Americans. That's what they were, American Indians. And so they sold these federally recognized tribes a bill of goods by telling them that, you need to be federally recognized. So what they did is they made them an ordinary citizen, just like any citizen in the United States. So if you're born in the United States, you don't have to be Indian to be a Native American. All you have to do is be born in the United States. So you get Irish, or you're Italian, you're a Native American. An American Aborigine is a whole different classification. We are the original inhabitants of the land, and this government, because we done finally figured it all out and decided, well, we don't want that, because there are a lot of things, a lot of our perks and privileges that we have that we were just ignorant of the fact. And so basically, I've got something like 11 12 nations now, from New England all the way down to the state of North Carolina, and it's over 7,000 Aboriginal Americans in fauna. And I have 2 Taino tribes because they did to them before they got to this country. They took their land away from them, the Puerto Ricans. So I have 2 Puerto Rican tribes and 1 Dominican tribe. And so this is what I do with a lot of my time with the United Nations, dealing with internal revenue, dealing with Social Security, and finding out that these laws were there to protect us all the time. We were just ignorant of the fact. And so basically we're using their laws to get our rights. And this is why we're having more and more Indians that are not wanting to become federally recognized, because they realize that everything that they have, we're entitled to also. The other thing is, I don't have to have the government put land in trust for me. I put all the land of the Massasoit in my tribal trust. This is why the Mashpees could not get the land down there in Taunton, because it's in my tribal trust, and they were told it belongs to the Poconokas. We don't expect to get the land back, but they're supposed to compensate us for the land, and they haven't done that. And so basically, these are some of the things that I'm doing now. That protest that you've seen with Brown University, that was one of our primary, Brown, where the Heifer Museum is. We had a protest there in 2017. I'm sure you saw that on TV. And basically, we're still dealing with Brown, to get that, some of that land back. But that was one of our, but it's a very spiritual place for us. A lot of our, high spiritual events taking place there. We have the Seat of the Massasoit there. We have the Walk of Painisi. We have the story of the 3 sisters right out there on that bay. A lot of that land is very sacred to us. And so basically, Brown realizes that they know that the land belongs to us. If I told you how the land was taken, no one in my family ever signed it over. It's called a surf and twig deed. It's a transfer of the land. They pick up a clog of dirt from the ground, and they break a twig of a tree, and they hand it to the whoever they're giving the land to, and that's how they transfer that land. So there isn't a clear title to anything at all so-ons, and they know this. But I'm not asking for the land back to so-ons. I'm asking back that there was one of our important villages. And we had many of them in our nation, because in the summer we moved out by the water. During the winter we moved inland, away from the water. So Poconoka, that is where they killed King Philip. That is where the memorial to King Philip is. And they beheaded him there, and they quartered his body, and they gave it to the different chiefs in his nation, and they ate his body, because Indians were very superstitious. They felt that they would be as strong as him, or stronger than King Philip. So this is what they did. But his head, they hung in Plymouth County on a pole for 25 years. And in our family, we were always told that that flag in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts state flag with the sword, the arm with the sword, and that Indian standing below him, we were always told that you stay in your place or we'll take your head off, just like we did Philip. So we were after that Massachusetts state flag also. These are some things that a lot of people don't realize, the genocide that really went on in this country, because they lied about the history. And they're trying today to right the wrong that was done. We can't go back and relive the past, but there are a lot of things that are restitutions that can be made to the Native Americans, and these are the things that I am out there fighting for now. So as far as our tribal business is concerned, we have the chiefs here of Poconoka to take care of the networking and the tribal business, and I'm taking care of things on another level for as long as I can. And so that's just a little bit more about you know, what's going on with Poconoke today. As I say, we're still negotiating with Brown for that land, and they are gonna return some of that land. We're just waiting for the surveyors to take in, to walk that land and see, you know, what the sensitive area is. But as far as I'm concerned, everything is sensitive there. You know, everything is sensitive, and so we'll see what happens with that. We've even had a mediator in on our meetings, and that was Colonel O'Donnell of the state police, and he's informed Brown that we're ready to deal. We've done what we were supposed to do. And that's, but any questions about, you know, what we're doing today? I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Well, thank you very much. So Sagamore talked about Brown University again. You know, we would love your support, you know, in helping us, you know, with our endeavor. It's, you know, the land is very important to us, and, you know, as he said, many important things happened, you know, on that land. That is where our Pinesi, to this day, still have their ceremonies. They do the walk of Pinesi. We just had 2 this summer do the walk of Pinesi, and you need special permission to do that. We leave the young men up there for a few days with nothing. We just drop them off there, and then we just go back and pick them up and hope they meet us on top of the mountain. So, you know, we do still go down there. We have ceremonies. You know, we do have a memorial, you know, on the break of dawn when, you know, King Philip was shot. We still go to the Myrie Swamp, and we still have a ceremony there. You know, we also, the 3 sisters are there at Mount Hope, and many moons ago, the Creator, because we were such a good people, he sent 3 messengers to our people bearing 3 gifts. And they gave us these gifts, and they told us to take them and to, you know, plant these gifts, and that they would grow and they would multiply, and we were to share these gifts with others. So we did as we were told, and indeed the gifts grew and they multiplied, and we shared these gifts. But there were some who did not believe that these 3 messengers were sent by the Creator, and they asked for a sign. And so the 3 messengers said, well, we have to leave, and we will give you a sign. So they walked into the water's edge, and then they turned and they waved to our people, and they turned to stone. Those are the 3 sisters, and the gifts that they bore were corn, beans, and squash. So that is at Mount Hope, or Patumtuck, the lookout of Poconoke, what our people call the lookout of Poconoke. You know, I keep saying it was one of our 3 sacred mountains, and you might have gone to Mount Hope, and you might say, that's not a mountain, that's a hill. They blew off the top of the mountain. It took about, what, 30?
75.
Oh, 75. They took about 75 feet when they did the Nike missile project. The government blew off the top of the mountain. So when you're looking at that mountain, if you can imagine 75 feet more on top of that, it was a mountain. So it's still one of the highest points in Rhode Island. So we did have a mountain here in Rhode Island up until they, you know, blew 75 feet, you know, off of it. But, you know, that land is very sacred to us. That is also where Wetucks came to our people, and Wetucks gave our people, you know, our sacred ways and our knowledge, told us to beware, you know, of, you know, Habakkuk, the, you know, the evil one. So there's lots and lots and lots of history sitting right in your backyard. And, you know, so, you know, again, we would really appreciate your support, because we want to be able to share that history, you know, with you, and keep that land in its beautiful, pristine state the way it should be. I think with that, we'll, you know, call it an evening. If anyone has any questions, you know, feel free to come up, you know, and talk with us, any of us, and we'll kind of, you know, end it at that point. Yes?
Turn it back to Ellen.
And I'm going to turn the mic back over.
In closing our program, I'd like to ask Carol Little Meadow Brown and Patricia Gentleman Booker to close our program with a song.
And we are going to ask our sister Emily to join us.
I want to see you.
We're all having senior moments tonight. We're going to sing a native song. It's a lullaby, okay? And I hope you don't go, just don't go to sleep while we're singing. But it's one of our favorite songs that we like to sing. And it's what? Go ahead.
Grandmother's Lullaby.
Grandmother's Lullaby, okay. Okay, you can start it, Pat.
Hamba, 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 ya. Hamba, hamba, hey, ya. Hamba, 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 ya. Hamba, hey, ya, hey, ya. Oh, hamba, hey, ya, hey, ya. Hamba, 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 ya. Hamba, hamba, hey, ya. Hamba, 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 ya. Hamba, hey, ya, hey, ya. Oh, hamba, hey, ya, hey, ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program for this evening. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out on such a dreary night, but it was a beautiful program. I'd like to thank the Sagamore Chief Harry Hogg Edmonds and Station Tracy Dancy and Star Brown. I hope to see each and one of you again next year, and let's make a strong effort to make this bigger and better for next year. And thank the Council President, Mr. Brittle, Senator Val Lawson for being here tonight, and thank you, and have a good night.